Star Wars The Acolyte has finally arrived. The first 2 episodes are out, and I'm going to give you my honest thoughts. So right off the bat, I have mixed feelings, and I'm going to go into what worked for me and what didn't, the things I enjoyed, and the things I could have done without. I always do my best to be a positive voice for this fandom, so I'm going to start by focusing on all the things I really enjoyed. Diving into the first episode, the choreography was really awesome. I loved Master Indara, but it's such a shame Carrie-Anne Moss's character was killed off so soon. That being said, we know she appears in flashbacks in many episodes to come. Master Indara, Space Trinity had a swagger. That opening sequence was really phenomenal. And the 2 characters that have me the most invested of all of the others in the show are Master Sol, played by Lee Jung-jae, and Manny Jacinto's Qimir. Lots of fans are saying Jackie Lon, but for me it was those 2. Those were the standout characters with stellar performances, and part of the reason I do enjoy Master Sol is because he's a Qui-Gon-like figure, not afraid to rebel against the conventional wisdom of his fellow Jedi. And this happens on multiple occasions, whether he's correcting Jackie and telling her, actually no, screw the Order's fear of dwelling on the past. Sometimes reminiscing on past events helps you learn from those mistakes and prevents them happening again. He trusts his instincts and demonstrates a humane, empathetic side, which is definitely not demonstrated by Charlie Barnett's Yord Fandar. His Padawan had an awesome design as Igerian Jedi, but there is no doubt Yord is a by-the-book Jedi Knight who suppresses his emotions in favour of the Jedi Code. Again, as Leslye Headland said, we're being shown the downfall of the Jedi, their faults, and the fact Master Sol is nothing like that makes me fear he's gonna die at some point. As for Qimir, his is a mysterious character with more than what he lets on. He's a friend to May, and I think he too is an acolyte, to the one they call he, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a twist, and he himself is the helmeted dark side user, and he encrypts his true identity for the sake of the Sith code, which he references when he said peace is a lie. Master Sol even told May when he fought her in the 2nd episode that even if she wanted to, she couldn't tell him the identity of a master because she's never seen him unmasked. He goes to such great lengths to conceal who he is. I think what I love most about Qimir is that if he is a Sith, if he's an apprentice or an acolyte, he's got the perfect cadence, the perfect public-facing persona in the same way Palpatine did as a senator. Qimir is clumsy, he's got scoundrel energy, and I think another thing that sells it is that he's not a character who is quick to anger. He's got this passive, laid-back attitude to him, and so for those reasons, he's going to be one of the central tenets of the show. And speaking of the Sith Code, my next point is that I did enjoy the subtle references to the Jedi and Sith philosophies. For example, the Barash Vow, which Torben took, and is something referenced in several books and comics. An oath taken by Jedi who decide to refrain from all activities relating to the main order, to Coruscant, as a form of penitence, disengaging from anything but the Force itself. And this ties to the 4 Jedi who had a hand in whatever happened when Osha and May were just kids. Considering they gave away the twin mystery very early in the series, and I do have a gripe with that, this has become the main mystery at the heart of the show, and the reason Torben has lived with guilt and decided to take the vow, and finally when confronted by May, takes the poison and dies. It's the same reason Kalnaka isolates himself on Kofar. I think the show is about to demonstrate some of the more heinous things the Jedi covered up. Did they incinerate the village on Borak because they gave in to fear and then tried to hide it? Did they ruin the lives of May and Osha? Well, we know that May is out for revenge, because up until the end of episode 2, she thought her sister was dead, and the Jedi were to blame. That was the reason for a turn to the dark side. To contrast, Osha the good twin, well, I say good, the show is trying to show us how there is no clear-cut good or bad. She was once the Jedi Padawan of Sol, and she left the Order and now works as a mechanic, or mechanic, for the Neimoidians, which also looked quite cool, I'm not gonna lie. But now that May knows her sister is alive, it doesn't slow her down. She is going after Kalnaka. I also think Pip is a neat little droid, but every time he appeared on screen I'm just thinking, Disney is gonna milk this for merch. I mean, just yesterday they announced all the Funko Pops for the show. But anyway, the show revisits a planet we know from animation in the Clone Wars Season 4, Karlak, a snowy planet in the Outer Rim. Its surface was covered in forests and mountains, but it was a cold and snow-covered planet. Another thing I really loved were the aliens. I I really enjoy that we're seeing new species alongside familiar ones. For instance, the adorable moment with the bartender's kid, and the fact that's the reason May kind of stood off. She is very sensitive about her own childhood. I also found the prison breakout scene really fun. It kind of reminded me of the Kanji Club scene from The Force Awakens. And the navigator droid chairs. Nice additions to the Star Wars canon. Something really intriguing which speaks to the horror element of this show was when she was following the younger version of her sister. And that's kind of where we find out they're a dyad in the Force. You're with me, I'm with you, always one, but born as two. I can't wait to learn more about the which coven they come from, which is going to be later in the season. I also want to speak about the production value because there were some environments which were better than others, but generally it was more cinematic, and having watched the episodes on my phone, my laptop, and my TV, it's better looking than what I expected. Not reaching the greatness of The Mandalorian's first 2 seasons, but impressive nonetheless. So, as for my criticisms, starting with some of the more minor ones, it's a shame so many of the trailers and TV spots gave away so much of the plot, including the twins. They should have really dragged out that story and that mystery for much longer, maybe 2-3 episodes. It wasn't surprising, we already knew. And it wasn't just from the leaks. We were hearing this from Amanda Stenberg and Leslye Headland. It was in so much of the press tour and the interviews. In terms of characters I didn't like, I'm not a big fan of Venestra Rowe, at least not during this time period. I also can't get over the fact, of all the Mary Allens we've had in Star Wars, including live action, I don't like this specific design, and I know people are going to say, well, Mary Allens and members of the same species can look very different, but to me it just looks like they didn't do much other than paint Rebecca Henderson in green. I prefer the more textured, detailed, intricate look that Luminara and Julie has, and even Barasofi. I guess I'm just not a fan of the aesthetic. The pacing was generally pretty decent, but so often I found scenes lacking the energy and oomph they deserved, the actors deserved, their characters deserve, the scene, the setting deserved, and it just kind of fell flat. I would say the unevenness was pretty noticeable at times. It's hard to quantify because fan perceptions will be different and subjective, but it is something I noted in both my initial watch and my 2 subsequent rewatches. The dialogue could have been better at times. For instance, in the final scene where Master Soul is talking to Venestra Rowe, the whole kind of corporate feeling of the meeting she wanted to organise didn't sound very Star Wars-like. I guess you could explain this by the fact it's the High Republic, and this is what the Jedi were like during this time. At times you feel as though, is this really all they could have done with this? And that's the other frustrating thing, the potential, but not the execution. And so moving on, I guess there is a fear that they've already reached a kind of narrative dead end, because they've given us so much of the story. That being said, we're only 2 episodes in. I'm hoping there are twists, and it does pick up in ways we didn't expect. I am enjoying the story for what it is, and I do love references to the Hutts, Nar Shaddaa, the Clone Wars, all the kind of references and Easter eggs, but at the same time, we do have high expectations for the first High Republic show of this caliber and with this budget. I think we all suspected Master Indara would die in the first episode, but I don't think we expected this little of Carrie-Anne Moss. As I say, there are flashbacks that feature her prominently with the other Jedi, and I'm really looking forward to those. But to quote a popular review, Star Wars needs to stop killing off its coolest characters. As much as deaths can lend an emotional gravity to the galaxy far, far away, sometimes they're premature, and it's a real frustration for the fans. But in this case I get it. There are 4 Jedi on May's kill list. She's gotten 2, but I wish Master Indara had survived this fight, went back to Coruscant, maybe had a few more scenes, more dialogue, more reflections on what happened 16 odd years ago, and then is killed by May in a second fight. I don't know, just my thoughts on the matter. To give the show the benefit of the doubt, it is too early to say. There are things I loved in it. As I say, Lee Jung-jae is a fantastic actor, and he plays Sol beautifully. I think that is the character I'm most invested in. And the shady, weirdo Qimir in the shadows is also fascinating to me. So bring on the so-called very controversial episode 3 next week. That is what reviewers are saying. Dying to know what it is. But I guess those are my overall thoughts. I tried to keep it balanced. The things I loved, the things I didn't. And I can already see this is a very divisive show. But for those saying this is on the level of Andor, I know they're very different kinds of show, but I'm sorry, I've got to disagree. At least so far, the quality of the writing in the show is nowhere near that of Tony Gilroy. Again, just my point of view. But what did you guys think? Did you enjoy them? Did you not? Let me know in the comments down below. Share your thoughts, and if you're new, please be sure to subscribe, like this video, and may the Force be with you, always.